Hi guys, this is Shannon from Reptile Way and welcome back to our channel. I'm so excited to bring you this video. This video is a step-by-step guide of how to build something like this. And it is again from an Australian perspective, so all the building materials can be purchased from Bunnings, and you can get your plants wherever you like these fake plants are from Spotlight, but every single building material can be purchased from Bunnings. So super accessible for most people around Australia. And again, don't look at this and think, oh, I could never build something like that. We will go through every tiny detail and it is really achievable. It just takes a bit of time, patience, and you just sort of need to go through all those steps. But let's dive straight into this video. Now the first step you really want to start off with is you're making the structure. So pretty much the bones of the build. You can get these multi-use insulation foam boards from Bunnings. They're absolutely great. You can use a knife or a foam cutter, doesn't really matter. Foam cutter, it is a little bit easier to do and a little bit quicker. However, a knife can do the job. I do find the foam cutter does nice smooth edges. It's a bit easier to carve all these little divots in if you need to. So I'm creating that top sort of basking layer and siliconing all those layers together. And then I'm creating stilts for this piece to sit on. Now the idea behind this piece is I really want to increase the surface area of the enclosure. So they've got that big basking space on top, which is a lot of surface area, but raising it on thin stilts will leave a lot of space underneath. So I just don't want it to be a big blocky thing that's going to take up a lot of space and yeah, nothing can be utilized underneath. Now with the stilts, stacking them all to the height that I want, carving around to make those stilts look quite natural. And again, carving is extremely important around the stilts, especially if I decide not to put spray foam there. So that's why I did that, just in case. But doing the last stilt, gluing all the pieces together, carving it to give it that more of a natural look. And you can see it's quite square because I do want it to go along the back wall of an enclosure, so go flush up against a wall. So sticking the top on. Now we're getting to the spray foaming part. So again, put plastic bags or plastic down because you do not want the spray foam going on your wall or going on the table. It's really hard to get off. And the reason why I'm putting it flush against the wall and upside down is I want it to be flat along the back. So that's why I've done that. It's just a little bit easier. So spray foaming, and again, when you're doing the spray foaming, don't stress if it looks messy or you think you've done something wrong. You can carve it off at the end of the day. This whole spray foaming process probably took about 30 minutes or so to do, so it doesn't take a long time. It's probably one of the quickest processes in the whole build. And the reason why I like to spray foam, I'm spray foaming particularly around where I'm wanting the ramps and things like that, but spray foaming is just really good to carve it out to make it look really natural. It's probably my favorite thing to use. It is a little bit expensive. It's about $24 or so for a can, and this piece probably used about three cans, I'd say. But yeah, and you can generally use a knife for the spray foam. Hot wire cutters do not agree with spray foam. And again, just spray foaming in that cave. I'll be doing a lot of carving in there, spray foaming the last little bits. And it's not going to be as big and bulky as this because you are going to carve a lot of it off. Save some pieces to create rocks and things like that, or for future builds that don't have that shiny coat on. And you need to wait about 2 days for that spray foam to completely expand. Once it does, you're going to get the plastic bags or plastic stuck to the bottom of it. Doesn't matter, you're going to carve all the shiny top coat off anyway. When you do carve, be warned, you will find pockets of unexpanded spray foam that's liquidy, so put it on plastic covering in case you do find that. When you're carving, put on a movie, do a marathon of shows, because it is a lengthy process. I did the carving over 2 days. The first set of carving, I think I carved for about 6 hours, and I do spend a lot of time on the carving because it is crucial to making the build look really natural. So you're going to create all those divots, cuts in the rocks, slopes. So yeah, really spend a bit of time. And then once you have finished the carving process, sit on it for a day or two and have a look at it and think, oh, is there anything I could change that my reptile would really like? So once I finished, I sort of, looked at it, sat on it for a day or two, and then I was like, oh, I think I want to put a little water hole on the top above the cave. So yeah, I added that, and I also expanded the cave. I made the cave bigger. I carved more foam out of that because I really wanted to increase the surface area and not just have a lot of dead space from the cave side walls. So yeah, really make it quite a spacious cave, but where they feel quite protected, sheltered. So yeah, carve it out, look at it, have a think. And yeah, definitely do not rush this process. I think it's pretty important. And I use a combination. I use the hot wire cutter just for the foam sheets and knife for the spray foam. Also, I cut this big piece into 2 pieces. And the reason why I did this was if you can't fit it in the enclosure, that's going to suck. So if you can't take your entire lid off an enclosure, you're not going to fit it in. So, or you'd have to take your sliding doors off, which don't always come out. But you can see that little water hole I did at the top there too. And yeah, I've just carved a little bit more out. Now we're getting to the grouting. Turn it upside down. You're going to do that bottom layer first. And I used this black grout and a light grey grout, and I mixed them together to create the colours that I wanted. And I always do a minimum of 4 layers of grout. My first layer of grout is a thick pancake consistency. It's quite thick, and that's going to give it the structure, the strength. It's going to fill in all those little air holes. And then my second layer, slightly thinner, third layer, slightly thinner. The fourth layer, I actually mix the grout to what I want the base color of the piece to look like. So the fourth layer is more for aesthetics. But the thinner you get as well, it's going to ensure that your piece isn't going to have cracks in it too. So you just don't want to do all the layers really thick because you're going to get cracks. So it's quite good to go thinner. I have heard people starting off with thinner layers and they say it acts as a primer. For me personally, I've just done it this way and I've had no issues. I find the strength component pretty important and filling in those air holes, which the thick grout, does a pretty good job at. So yeah, highly recommend doing 4 layers of grout because as well, when you're carving, it's going to allow you, quite a thick layer of grout to carve through. And do each layer of grout a different colour so you've covered it. Now we've finished that bottom layer, as you can see, of the grouting. That's all completed. And the colour of the the underneath of the grouting, I wasn't really too fussed about. It's the colour of the grouting for the top layers. So for the top of the build, so the main part of the build that you're going to see. So I'm starting off with a black grout. I like to start off dark for the bottom layer of grout, and then I go a dark grey, a lighter grey, then a lighter grey. And this means when I'm carving, when I carve down through the layers, it naturally gets darker. And then when I hit that black, I know don't carve anymore. We're at that last layer. But yeah, covering every little bit, cover every single crack, extremely important. Cover all the little air pockets, make sure you focus on that water hole. You do not want that not to be covered and water to seep through. So this is a bit of a timely process because you're making sure you've covered every little bit. Extremely messy, wear old clothes. It may get on the floor. You can just wipe it up. Use soapy water and a wet cloth and sort of use that to wipe it off. That works. and I always sort of mop around the floor and vacuum where I've just been grouting. So always the underneath first, do your 4 layers and then go to the top. But I sort of ran out of grout for when I was doing the little rock pieces, so I've done the final layer on the underneath pieces and then I'll eventually flip it over. But yeah, just touching up all the little gaps that I see, and then that is the first layer of grouting. It's that very dark black colour, then it gets lighter, and the very top layer is the colour grey that I want to be that base colour, as you can see there. Now the next phase, it's gonna get a little bit messy. So we're gonna do the carving, and you need a knife and a paintbrush for this step. And you're gonna sort of follow where the rocks naturally go, where you've grouted, where there's divots, cracks, grooves, emphasize that and carve that out. So yeah, I'm just sort of following that, and as I sort of carve out a bit, I use the paintbrush to brush away that excess grout that's been carved off, just so I can see like how my cracks are looking. That sounded really bad. How the cracks are looking on the build, and yeah, and it does make it look a lot more natural. If I just left it like that, it would look quite fake. However, carving in those grooves, and also it adds texture for your reptile, which is pretty cool. Adding that texture, a form of enrichment, really good, and it's gonna look aesthetically pleasing as well. And I made a lot of extra rocks, and I'm carving all the cracks and grooves into that. I didn't know whether I would use all of them. However, I just thought I'm just going to create a whole bunch of extra rocks in case I wanted to use or add it to the piece. So that's sort of the piece once I have carved, finished that carving process. You want to take all of those plastic bin bags off, replace it with fresh. Now we're going to the painting. Using black acrylic paint, putting in a spray water bottle, shake it up to mix it, spray it on a different surface till it goes out black, then spray it on your piece. And this black is just going to seep into where you've carved, the cracks and the grooves. And you may need to do 2 layers of this, 1, 2 or 3 layers, just see how it goes once it dries. And once you've finished the spray painting process, let it fully dry, and it can take 12-24 hours. You can quicken the process by dabbing up the really wet spots, like if it's sort of pooling, dab that up, and then once it's completely dry, you can do the dry brushing technique. So dry brushing technique, we're going to start off by mixing black and greys together, and you sort of get most of the paint off the brush, and then you sort of put it on your piece, and it's going to get those higher points of the piece. So, and then I also mix brown and black together to create sort of dark browns, just to add, you know, a bit more variation. It's going to look a little bit more natural. And again, dry brush technique over the top, and I just sort of did it where I thought I would naturally see those colours, where you could imagine the piece naturally being worn. And yeah, just going over, making sure it all sort of blends together. And this is quite a nice process to start to see it transforming. And now I'm sort of going into that cave area, putting sort of the colours that I think it should look, maybe darkening that cave out a little bit, as that's what it would naturally be out in the wild. Caves are generally quite dark. And now I'm adding the highlights, so black with quite a bit more white in it, so it looks naturally worn. So where the sun's been beaming down on it, where when it's rained, it's sort of washed away that top layer, but mainly from, you know, the sun, natural wear and tear, just to add, you know, again, make it look more real, I guess. And I'm sort of going along the whole piece. I put the whole piece together whilst I'm doing this, so it sort of looks seamless, and where the highlights are, it all goes together. And highlighting the rocks, of course, you want it all to match. And once I finish that, I always re-grout my water hole. I don't want any paint in there, so I mix the grouts to make up a colour that matches my piece. So I mix the black and grey grout. Now the waterproofing, so you're going to turn it upside down, waterproof the underneath first, do 3 layers of waterproofing, follow the instructions, super important, don't just think you know how to use it, follow the instructions exactly, and it will add a bit of a shine, but just doing 3 layers will still make it sort of look natural. Anymore, it's going to look really shiny. Now for the top coat, so once we flipped it back over, I've put it on these plastic containers, and yeah, you can see sort of the white waterproofing. It's where waterproofing is pulled, and you can really notice that. That's why we save the main part you're going to be looking at of the build till last, the top bit of the build. You can touch it up, and then once you've touched it up with paint, it's blended, you can't see those blobs of waterproofing. Then you're going to start waterproofing, and again 3 coats of this. I did more in the waterhole bit though. I did about, I think, 6 coats in the waterhole. So yep, waterproof the entire thing, and again on plastic sheets, and then there's the build finished. Looking nice, love that waterhole. And now it's the fun stuff, the decorating, putting plants, adding those final touches. So I'm using these vines from Spotlight. Spotlight has an amazing selection of fake plants that I think look quite natural. I'm putting some vines to cover up where the 2 pieces connect, to sort of hide that. And then I'm sort of putting the vines where I think they naturally droop and grow. And yeah, just to add a bit of greenery. I don't want to go too crazy with the vines, and I'm sort of placing them where I'd like them before I stick them down. And I'm not putting the glue, the silicone on the stem. I'm actually putting a nice blob on the leaf. There's more surface area than sticking the leaf down, as that's gonna, you know, be quite hard for an animal to rip off. So yeah, put the glue where there's gonna be more surface area. So securing all of that down, and this can take, you know, you have to maybe hold a leaf down for a little bit before you move on to the next piece. Now we're making it look all pretty for our little photo shoot. So just putting my little soil mixture down to take some nice photos and videos. As you know, I don't know what I'm doing with this piece, whether I'm going to sell it, keep it for more YouTube videos when I'm talking about animals, care guides, but there you go. That's what it looks like finished. You need to wait for 7 days for the silicone to cure and the waterproofing to properly cure, and then you probably want to just rinse it all off. And I use Earth dishwashing liquid to clean this. But anyway, we've got Diglett doing a beautiful job at modelling. Go Diglett, he loved it. Climbing all over, had so much space. Check out the basking platform on top, so much surface area. Then the big massive cave. Now the shopping list, screenshot this, pause it, jot it down, do whatever you need to do. And yeah, all the stuff can be bought from Bunnings. Good luck. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do hope it did help you out, give you some building inspiration, give you some ideas on what you could do for your scaly pet. And if you did like the video, if it did help you out, please hit that thumbs up button. It would really help us out. We are a new channel, so yeah, every little bit helps. And if you want to see more future content, feel free, hit that subscribe button, as we will be bringing out quite a few more building videos in the next couple of months, as well as more care information when it comes to native Australian reptiles. But until then guys, bye.